Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Born and died, saved by love, count my blessing from above.
And good evening, wherever you may be around the world. I am Marcus Holmes, and I am excited that you are here with me live on Love and Stuff. I just got a volume going on in the background that I got to turn down. And I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us, whether you are watching us on Twitch TV, YouTube events, here live on the Love and Stuff community page or the Marcus R. Holmes page. I hope that you will join us. Happy Black History Month. What an awesome opportunity. And I'm so excited that you're here. We'll be celebrating throughout the month. We will not do 28 days this year, but we will do as many days as we can, bringing you wonderful content about our rich heritage and history. You will hear from great people within our Love and Stuff community, and you'll have opportunity to win some wonderful prizes that are geared that are made rather from African Americans. So Black businesses will be supporting during this month, and you'll have a chance to win some of those prizes and learn more about Black companies, African American inspired organizations and products. So will you take a moment, please, and click share, tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends, 5 of your more popular ones, to join us in Black History Month 2022, still rising in Black excellence. Join us if you are on Twitch TV or YouTube events. Just drop in the comments and say, hey, so that we know that you are here and tracking with us. And we're excited that you are watching us from wherever you're watching. But it's always my pleasure and joy to be able to shout you out. And I know some people say, I don't want to be shouted out, but I want to shout you out to let you know how much we appreciate your being here. And so we will be talking about the rise in Black excellence. We know that we're 365 Black, those that are in the African American community, diaspora, but we wanted to take out this time that has been set aside to honor the history, sometimes harrowing history, and the legacy upon which we stand and hopefully are carrying forward in the spirit of our great ancestors. And so we thought we'd start and talk a little bit about poetry and Black love, because this is Love and Stuff after all. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Black love and share some of the poetry about Black love. And I just wanted, as an opening, thinking about Black love and growing up in the 70s, in a time, at least for me, if anybody's a 70s baby or a 60s baby or whatever decade you're from. But as a 70s baby, most of the people in the general area in which I grew up were two parent homes. And so I got to see a lot of different variations of relationships. And I am sure in part that colored my thinking, my thought process around Black love, what that meant from a man and woman context, relationship context. I think a lot of that colored it because I saw, for the most part, a lot of couples, families, husband and wife and children, or husband and wife, or some that didn't have children. And that was consistent in those early years in the church as well, husband and wife. What I remember that's interesting, there wasn't as much a demonstrative um, expression of that love in a lot of places. As a matter of fact, I remember my parents had what I think at that time was maybe a queen or king, I don't know, but it could pull two beds separate apart. And I didn't know for years, there were times the bed was together, the times it was apart. Not as many times of together as I recall, but I remember asking my sister Vanessa that question. She was like, oh, they're doing grown folk stuff. So I don't ever remember walking in on that or hearing anything like that. But I always remembered there being the separate beds, and sometimes they were together. It took me years to really understand that. And I remember in church, couples didn't always sit together. One might have been serving. And so that one, the husband was sitting up front and maybe the wife was sitting in the back, but there wasn't always this demonstrative um, expression of affection. So I want you to think about that and think about how Black love, if you're in the Black African American diaspora, think about how from an early time, your thoughts on love and its manifestation, what that looks like for you, what validates that for you, and where that validation comes from. I think that's important in your love journey because you've got to be willing to allow space for someone else whose love journey does not include what you've experienced. And so we'll continue down that journey of love, and we'll talk more as we get inside the love and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that, where we'll talk about how your love quotient is impacted from a historical standpoint and what that history has meant to you and how it has impacted how you see others' ability to love you. Because oftentimes we're expecting people to love us like we would love them. We're expecting people to love us in the same manner that we would love them, even if their background, their orientation didn't bring them to that same conclusion around love. So someone who was in a home where there were two parents might have a different idea of love than someone who was in a single parent household. Not one better or the other, right? But different. And you've got to be able to accept and recognize, looking at your pathology of love, if you will, looking at your footprint of love. How did your parents love, your grandparents love, your community love, the church's love shape what you think about love and how you manifest love? How has it shaped it? And so we're going to talk a little bit about Black love in poetry, because I think it is just, we have some awesome examples of Black love in poetry. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, share a little bit about that, because much of Black love poetry is contemporary, right? And this is not because Black or African American literature is new, or that it does not have a rich history of tradition, says the Love of Poetry of the World.com, but it's largely due to the effects of the tragedies that were well documented in the recording of the history of the African people, of dislocation, of deprivation, and degradation. And in these circumstances, it's hardly surprising that the propagation of Black culture, including its literary achievements, is much more a recent phenomenon when compared to other races. Thus, in the past, whenever Black culture surfaced in the public mainstream, it was largely ignored or shunned, and often erroneously stereotyped as primitive. One other reason why this is the case is the large oral traditions that underpins much of the history of African literature. So a lot of the history is oral, right? So these massive handicaps, if you will, aside, Black culture is as rich as those of any other people, right? And it's manifest in their contributions to dance, to music, to art, to writing. So unearthing this rich cultural history of the race brings us to some Black love poetry and some main characters, if you will, some main poets of that Black love poetry that I will share with you. One of those is the late Dr. Maya Angelou. Probably none other in Black love poetry is as renowned as Maya Angelou, born in 1926. She has garnered respect and fame as one of the best known Black women authors in the world. With an eclectic resume as an artist and educator, Maya Angelou has given us such best-selling titles as I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, Gather Together in My Name, Singin' and Swingin', and The Heart of a Woman. Her accomplishments, of course, include acting, stage productions, and screenplays, and she's one of few African American poets in history to have a recital on the occasion of the inauguration of a president. Her Black love poetry is just as notable. And so I'm going to share a few of her pieces here. The first one that we're sharing is called Men. When I was young, I used to watch behind the curtains as men walked up and down the street. Wino men, old men, young men sharp as mustard. See them? Men are always going somewhere. They knew I was there, 15 years old and starving for them. Under my window, they would pause, their shoulders high like the breast of a young girl, jacket tails slapping over those behind. Men. One day they hold you in the palms of their hands, gentle as if you were the last raw egg in the world. Then they tighten up, just a little. The first squeeze is nice, a quick hug, soft into your defenselessness. A little more. The hurt begins. Wrench out a smile that slides around the fear. When the air disappears, your mind pops, exploding fiercely, briefly, like the head of a kitchen match. Shattered. It is your juice runs down their legs, staining their shoes. When the earth rights itself again and taste tries to return to the tongue, body has slammed shut forever. No keys exist. Then the window draws full upon your mind. There, just beyond the sway of curtains, men walk. Something, going someplace. But this time, I will simply stand and watch. Maybe. The next poem is called Refusal. Again, this is Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou, the late Dr. Maya Angelou, as we talk about Black love. Beloved, beloved, in what other lives or lands have I known your lips, your hands, your laughter brave, irreverent, those sweet excesses that I do adore? What surety is there that we will meet again on other worlds, some future time, undated? I defy my body's taste without the promise of one more sweet encounter. I will not deign to die. When you come to me unbidden, beckoning me to long ago rooms where memories lie, offering me as to a child, an addict, gatherings of days too few, baubles of stolen kisses, trinkets of borrowed love, trunks of secret words, I cry. Touched by an angel. We, unaccustomed to a courage exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us to life. Love arrives, and in its train comes ecstasies, old memories of pleasure, ancient histories of pain. Yet if we are all bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls. When we are weaned from our timidity in the flush of love's light, we dare be brave. And suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be. Yet it is only love which sets us free. And last among many works of Dr. Maya Angelou that you can read, Recovery. A last love, proper in conclusion, should snip the wings, forbidding further light. A last love, proper in conclusion, should snip the wings, forbidding further flight. But I, now, reft of that confusion, am lifted up and speeding toward the light. And those, again, are the works of Dr. Maya Angelou. In Black love poetry that we're talking about today, thank you for joining us that are joining on the Love and Stuff page, the Marcus R. Holmes page, Twitch TV, YouTube events. Happy Black History Month, and we're celebrating and talking about Black love and Black love poetry. So in Black love poetry, Paul Laurence Dunbar was the first African American poet to garner national critical acclaim. Born in Dayton, Ohio in 1872, Dunbar penned a large body of dialect poems, standard English poems, essays, novels, and short stories before he died at the age of 33 in 1906. The son of freed slaves, not surprisingly, his family was poor, but his mother encouraged his literary pursuits from an early age, and he wrote his first verses at the age of 6. He was the only African American in his class at school, where he distinguished himself as member of the Debating Society, editor of the school paper, and president of the school's literary society. He also published an African American newsletter in Dayton, the Dayton Tatler, when he left college. His first public reading was on his birthday in 1892, and from this venture, he made influential literary friends who wrote of his talent in several newspapers across the country. This exposure afforded him regional attention, and his first collection of poems, Oaken Ivory, was published in 1892. Though well received locally, Dunbar still struggled as an elevator operator, where he sold his book for $1 to people who rode the elevator. With time, his reputation grew, and he got another big break when he was invited to recite at the World's Fair, where he met Frederick Douglass, the renowned abolitionist who rose from slavery to political and literary prominence in America. Douglass called Dunbar the most promising young colored man in America. His second book, Majors and Minors, propelled him to national fame. William Dean Howells, a novelist and widely respected literary critic who edited Harper's Weekly, praised Dunbar's book in one of his weekly columns and launched Dunbar's name into the most respected literary circles across the country. A New York publishing firm combined Dunbar's first 2 books and published them as Lyrics of a Lowly Life. Dunbar produced 12 books of poetry, 4 books of short stories, a play, and 5 novels. His work appeared in Harper's Weekly, the Sunday Evening Post, the Denver Post, Current Literature, and a number of other magazines and journals. In 1897, his fame spread across the Atlantic, where he traveled to England to recite his works on the London literary circuit. He returned to marry Alice Ruth Moore, a young writer, teacher, and proponent of racial and gender equality who had a master's degree from Cornell. And so I'm going to read a couple of his works. If is one of his works. If life were but a dream, my love, death the waking time, if day had not a beam, my love, and night had not a rhyme, a barren, barren world were this without one saving gleam. I'd only ask that with a kiss you'd wake me from this dream. If dreaming were the sum of days and loving were the bane, if battling for a wreath of babes could soothe a heart in pain, I'd scorn the meed of battle's might, all other aims above. I'd choose the human's higher right to suffer and to love. Song by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Oh, excuse me. My heart to thy heart, my hand to thine, my lips to thy lips, kisses are wine. Brewed for the lover in sunshine and shade, let me drink deep, then my African maid. Lily to lily, rose unto rose, my love to thy love tenderly grows. Rend not the oak and the ivy in twain, nor the swart maid from her swarthier swain. A Negro's love song. Seen my lady home last night. Jump back, honey, jump back. Held her hand and squeezed it tight. Jump back, honey, jump back. Hear her sigh, a little sigh. Seen a light gleam from her eye, and a smile go flitting by. Jump back, honey, jump back. Hide the wind blow through the pine. Jump back, honey, jump back. Mockingbird was singing fine. Jump back, honey, jump back. And my heat was beating so when I reached my lady's door that I couldn't but to go. Jump back, honey, jump back. Put my arm around her waist. Jump back, honey, jump back. Raise her lips and took a taste. Jump back, honey, jump back. Love me, honey, love me true. Love me well as I love you. And she answered, 'cause I do. Jump back, honey, jump back. One of my favorite. Invitation to love. Come when the nights are bright with stars or when the moon is mellow. Come when the sun, his golden bars, drops on the hayfield yellow. Come in the twilight, soft and gray. Come in the night or come in the day. Come, O love, whenever you may, and you are welcome, welcome. You are sweet, O love, dear love. You are soft as the nestling dove. Come to my heart and bring it rest as the bird flies home to its welcome nest. Come where my heart is full of grief or where my heart is merry. Come with the falling of the leaf or with the reddening cherry. Come where the year's first blossom glows. Come where the summer gleams and glows. Come with the winter's drifting snows. And you are welcome, welcome. And a frolic. Swing your lady round and round. Do the bees you know. Make your bow and pomade up and down the flow. Make that banjo hump himself. Listen at her talk. Master on the town tonight. And ain't no time to walk. Lift your feet and flutter feet. Run, Miss Lucy, run. Reckon you'll be catched and kissed, for the night is done. You don't need to be so proud. Eyes are watching you, and eyes laying lots of plans, but to get you too. Moonlight on the cotton field, shining soft and white. Whippoorwill telling tales out there in the night. And your cabins cross the lot. Run, Miss Lucy, run. Reckon you'll be catched and kissed, or the night is done. Paul Laurence Dunbar. Another name in Black love poetry that we're talking about here on Love and Stuff on the first day of Black History Month, and we'll be throughout the month talking about Black History Month, different aspects of our history. As you'll see, we're still rising in Black excellence, but we want to share in this month especially some moments in Black history, and we're talking about Black love poetry tonight. And hopefully you will continue to read some of this love poetry and reflect on how poetry and what you saw in Black love relationships have informed your thoughts about Black love. Anne Spencer, 1882 to 1975, was a unique poet who wrote fine Black love poetry. Her stature in American literature is still growing, but it is already clear that she transcends categorization, categorization, as merely a Black love poetry writer. Her career displayed the free, independent spirit she prided above all else, and her single mindedness draws comparison with that of other unique American poetess, Emily Dickinson. Anne Spencer loved nature and built a beautiful garden in her home, which for over 50 years provided a conducive environment for meeting with her circle of literary friends, ranging from George Washington Carver to Martin Luther King Jr., from Mary McLeod Bethune to W.E. Du Bois, and from Adam Clayton Powell to Thurgood Marshall. This garden, I'm always betwixt W.E. Du Bois, Du Bois. Let me say it. This garden in her little den, containing her memorabilia, is today the center of a house and garden museum dedicated to her life's work. It also provided her the necessary inspiration for the poems that would establish and secure her reputation as a thinker and writer of national significance. Anne Spencer wrote fine Black love poetry and is often classified as a Harlem Renaissance poet. The truth is, she had been writing poetry for many years before the famous rebirth movement that started in the 1920s, when she was already in her 40s. While it is true she had a wide acquaintance with civil rights leaders, literary dignitaries, lecturers, and other prominent citizens, Black and white, she was not particularly a pleader of causes. Though she rarely commented on race issues in her poetry, her works still clearly expressed her contempt for racial prejudice. Her poetic style, including her Black love poetry, reveals her marked individuality and affinity for natural imagery. She is more of a neo-romantic who displayed the convention of British and American romantics. Thus, it is no surprise that she was an admirer of English poet Robert Browning. Anne's poems are filled with themes of friendship, human relations, personal rights of women, and contempt for racial discrimination. Her settings, moods, and themes came directly from her everyday life. She masterfully creates metaphors for human life by using images in her garden, such as birds, flowers, and insects. Much of her Black love poetry shows dramatic compression and sharpness of image, and phrase which exhibits form and color in a rich and varied vocabulary. We'll start off with the wife woman. The wife woman. Maker of sevens in the scheme of things, from earth to star. Thy cycle holds whatever is fate, and over the border, the bar. Though rank and fierce the mariner, sailing the seven seas, he prays as he holds his glasses to his eyes, coaxing the Pleiades. I cannot love them, and I feel you're glad, chiding from the grave, that my all was only worth at all what joy to you it gave. These seven links the law compelled for the human chain, I cannot love them, and you, O sevenfold months in Flanders slain. A jungle here, a cave there, bred 6 in a million years. Sure and strong, mate for mate, such love as culture fears. I gave you clear the oil and wine. You saved me your hob and hearth. See how even life may be ere the sickle comes and leaves a swath. But I can wait the 7 moons for years I spare, hoarding the heart's plenty, nor spend a drop nor share. So long hilt outlives a smile and a silken gown, then gaily reach up from my shroud, and you, glory clad, reach down. Lines to a nasturtium, a lover's muse. Flame flower, day torch, Mauna Loa. I saw a daring bee today pause and soar. In your flaming heart, then did I hear crisp, crinkled laughter as the furies after tore him apart. A bird next, small and humming, looked into your startled depths and fled. Surely some dread sight and dafter than human eyes of mine can see, that the stricken air waved drumming in his flight. Day torch, flamethrower, cool hot beauty, I cannot see. I cannot hear your fluty voice lure your loving swain, but I know one other to whom you are in beauty, born in vain. Hair like the setting sun, her eyes a rising star, motions gracious as reeds by Babylon, by all your competing. Hands like brown lily sweet, cold of gold, were fair enough to touch her feet. Ah, how the senses flood my repeating. At once in her fire lit heart, I felt the fury beating, beating. For Gem, Easter Eve, again by Anne Spencer. If ever a garden was Gethsemane, old tombs set high against the crumpled olive tree and lichen, this my garden has been to me. For such as I none other is so sweet. Lacking old tombs, here stands my grief, and certainly its ancient tree. Peace is here, and in every season of quiet beauty, the sky falling about me, evenly to the compass. What is sorrow but tenderness now in this earth closed frame of sky and land and sky, falling constantly into horizons of east and west, north and south? What is pain but happiness here, amid these green and wordless patterns, indefinite textures of blade and leaf? Beauty of an old, old tree, last comfort in Gethsemane. Lifelong poor Browning. Lifelong poor Browning never knew Virginia, or he'd not grieve in Florence for April sallies. Back to English gardens after Euclid's linears, cleft yews, pomander walks, and preached alleys. Primroses, prim indeed, in quiet order hedges. Waterways, soberly, sedated, channeled, no thin riotous blade, even though among the sedges, all the wild countryside tamely impaneled. Dead now, dear Browning, lives on in heaven. Heaven's Virginia when the year's at its spring. He's haunting the byways of wine-aired Levin and throating the notes of the wilding on wing. Here canopy reaches of dogwood and hazel, beech tree and redbud fine laced in vine, fleet clapping reels by lush fern and basil, drain blue hills to lowland scented with pine. Think you he meets in this tender green sweetness? Shade that was Elizabeth and mortal completeness. And those are the works of Anne Spencer. Beautiful, beautiful works. And so we have shared with you works from Anne Spencer, Maya Angelou, and Paul Laurence Dunbar on Black love poetry. Happy Black History Month. I want you to consider the writings of these poets and whether or not these writings or other writings are a part of the tapestry that has informed your thought, your experience on Black love. I shared at the outset that being the youngest of a 39 and 40-year-old couple, that I did not understand the bringing of beds together. There were these two bed pieces that come together as one and could be separate beds. And I didn't understand what the coming together was at such a young age because Being a baby of the 70s, there wasn't always as much a public demonstration of that affection. Not always in community, not always in the church, but there was a strong bond of covenant among relationships with parents, uh, mostly in the community in which I was reared, two parent homes. And so I saw Black love as being two parent homes, not always two parent homes full of affection. There was disillusionment and there was disenfranchisement that manifested itself in many ways as people struggled to be middle class and struggled to make ends meet and struggled to provide for their children a better life, a more resilient and beautiful life than what they had experienced. But they were more resilient than I think maybe generations to follow have been. That Black love saw harrowing experiences, but held together homes and community and love. And so that's a part of what informs my thought about Black love and the amount of affection that I seek to give and get, the amount of loyalty that I believe is important in relationships and hanging in there without regard sometimes to what some of the extremes might happen within relationships. All of those things that I saw, the music and the poetry, informed my thoughts on Black love. And so I'm wondering what informs yours as well. We also have a few poems of some more, we'll call them more contemporary uh, writers, but we're going to also uh, share a little bit of Claude McKay and Nikki Giovanni. And just before we do those, we're going to go to some more modern poets from love poems and poetry. This one is Loretta Clark, and it's entitled Sweetest Love Note. One night, a guy and a girl were driving home from the movies. The boy sensed there was something wrong because of the painful silence they shared between them that night. The girl then asked the boy to pull over because she wanted to talk to him. She told him that her feelings had changed and that it was time to move on. A silent tear slid down his cheek as he slowly reached into his pocket and passed her a folded note. At that moment, a drunk driver was speeding down that very same street. He swerved right into the driver's seat, killing the boy. Miraculously, the girl survived. Remembering the note, she pulled it out and read it. It said, "Without your love, I would die." Again, that's Loretta Clark, Sweetest Love Note. Next, Heather Hills, Jungle Love. Your sweet nectar wraps around my senses like jungle vines, steady drums beating, your heart near mine. Your strong hands hold me suspended by my waist, just enough pain and strength against my supple skin for my taste. The musk of your sculpted body in the forest has me going wild, but yet the tender way you protect me reminds me of being a child. A safe familiarity with a strain of animalistic seduction. Your invisible hold over me leaves me arrow poisoned, unable to function. My long dark hair wraps you with smells of coconut and ocean sun. Your locks full of mud and enemy's blood. Together, my warrior, we make one. And Love by Reese. Love being felt caressively, so sexually, intimately, intentively, makes me feel so radical, speaking hypothetically of how it makes me feel. So real, the thrill that I always feel, the ideal of me wanting a kiss. I can't resist what this is, which is you, only you. No one else has made me feel what I felt. Get me so hot until the point I melt. Our sweat began to pelt upon each other. There is no other that makes me feel what I feel when we're together, from now until forever. The love we feel physically, mentally, and emotionally, but just to think I'm only speaking hypothetically. Again, that's Devontae Reese, love. So this theme, these thoughts of Black love poetry is still informing and still hasn't been informed by the experience, the rich culture of African Americans. And I'm asking you today, as I invite you to come inside of Love and Stuff and we talk more about this love quotient that we have. What informs your love quotient? What relationships or music or poetry or art has informed your heart's position or stance on Black love? Our rich tradition as we celebrate Black history is filled with so many different poets. And another one that we want to share some work from is Claude McKay. I'm excited to share some of Claude McKay's work with you. He's a love poetry contributor, born in 1890, passed away in 1948. He was born in Jamaica and died an American citizen. As a poet, novelist, and journalist, he was very influential, especially earlier in his career when he wrote many of his famous protest poetry, which were sonnets. Some of these are If We Must Die, his best known poem, and an anthem of resistance, later quoted by Winston Churchill during World War II. Baptism, the White House, and the lynching. McKay's influence was wide and far-reaching, mainly because he broke new ground by being very direct on racial issues from a working-class focal point of view. This innovation made him an inspirational figure for the emergent generation of poets like Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen, who formed the core of the Harlem Renaissance. Years later, when he sojourned in Paris, his novel Banjo, A Story Without a Plot in 1929, influenced the young African student Leopold Sédar Senghor, as well as Aimé Césaire, and other pioneers of the Negritude literary movement, that took hold in French West Africa and the West Indies. Here are a couple of his wonderful works. Jasmine. Your scent is in the room. Swiftly it overwhelms and conquers me. Jasmine, night jasmine, perfect of perfume. Heavy with dew before the dawn of day. Your face was in the mirror. I could see your smile and vanish suddenly away, leaving behind the vestige of a tear. Sad, suffering face from parting grown so dear. Night jasmine cannot bloom in this cold place. Without the street, it's wet and weird with snow. The cold new trees are tossing to and fro. Too stormy is the night for your fond face, for your low voice too loud, the wind's mad roar. But oh, your scent, it's here jasmines that grow, luxuriant, cluster round your cottage door. Tormented. I will not reason, wrestle here with you, though you pursue and worry me about. As well put forth my swarthy arm to stop. The wild wind howling, darkly mad without. The night is yours for revels. Day will light. I will not fight you, bold and tigerish, for I am weak while you are gaining strength. Peace, cease tormenting me to have your wish. But when you're filled and sated with the flesh, I shall go swiftly to the silver stream to cleanse my body for the spirit's sake, and sun my limbs and close eyes to dream. To OEA. Your voice is the color of a robin's breast, and there's a sweet sob in it like rain, still rain in night. Among the leaves of the trumpet tree, close to his nest, the pea dove sings, and each note thrills me with strange delight. Like the words wet with music that well from a I'm afraid of your eyes. They're so bold, shining like gold, but sometimes they are gentle and soft like the dew on the lips of the Eucharist. Before the sun comes warm with his lover's kiss, you are sea foam, pure with a star's loveliness. Not mortal, a flower, a fairy, too fair for the beauty shown on earth. All wonderful things, all beautiful things, gave of oh, I love you so much, not recking of passion that I feel it is wrong. But men will love you, flower, fairy, non mortal spirit burdened with flesh, forever, lifelong. After the winter. Someday, when trees have shed their leaves, and against the morning's white, the shivering birds beneath the eaves have shelter for the night. We'll turn our faces southward, love, toward the summer isle, where baboos spire to shafted grove, and wide-mouthed orchids smile. And we will seek the quiet hill, where towers the cotton tree, and leaps the laughing crystal rill, and works the droning bee. And we will build a cottage there, beside an open glade, with black-ribbed bluebells blowing near, and ferns that never fade. Heritage. Now the past seems vividly alive, and in this shining moment I can trace, down through the vista of the vanished years, your fawn-like form, your fond elusive face. And suddenly, some secret springs released, and unawares a riddle is revealed. And I can read like large black lettered print, which seemed before a thing forever sealed. I know the magic word, the graceful thought, the song that fills me in my lucid hours, the spirit's wine that thrills my body through and makes me music drunk are yours, all yours. I cannot praise, for you have passed from praise. I have no tinted thoughts to paint you true, but I can feel and I can write the word. The best of me is but the least of you. Claude McKay. And before we close with Nikki Giovanni, we are celebrating Black History Month and opening our month of celebration with Black History uh, poetry, with Black love poetry. And we've shared from Dr. Maya Angelou, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Ann Spencer, Claude McKay, Devontae Reese, Heather Hill, and we're getting ready to close with Nikki Giovanni. And I have one more modern poet, even though most of our poetry is modern, Loretta Clark, The Sweetest Love Note, which is a beautiful piece. And I'm asking you, has your experience, has your ideology about Black love been informed by what you've read, by what you've experienced, by the culture, the rich, vast culture in the African American diaspora? Think about it, because your experience might be different from the person that you are seeking relationship and love with. And understanding their experience is germane to you building a powerful Black love or love. As I stated at the outset, my experience of two parent homes growing up informed my thought about love. And I have to be open to those who may not have had that experience. Not that that experience is better or not, it's just different. And in understanding the diverse experiences, you can be open to the opportunity of a really powerful and solid Black love. So we challenge you in this Black History Month, if you're on the path of love and you're going to join the Inside the Love and Stuff group, if you're on the path of love, be open that your experience, your ideology about love has been informed by many different things. Nikki Giovanni, born 1943, is the most prolific Black love poetry writer in the opinion of some, many. Very much an epitome of the contemporary poet. She was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, brought up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and educated in the all-Black Fisk University. At college, she got involved in two passions that would continue to dominate her life: literature and politics. In 1967, she became actively involved in the Black arts movement, a loose coalition of African American intellectuals who wrote politically and artistically radical poems aimed at raising awareness of Black rights and promoting the struggle for racial equality. I just want to take a note to say during this month, you're going to hear more about the Black arts movement, and I hope that you will enjoy the content that we will share. Radicalized by the assassination of Malcolm X and by the rise of the militant Black Panthers, her poetry in the 1960s and 1970s was colorful and combative, and for that generation, her writings epitomized this period of tumult and racial tension in American history. Nikki Giovanni has actually published a book of love poems which contain her musings on the subject, written between 1968 and 1997. Verses from 3 decades of her work exhibit a range of emotions from romantic love to love of country, friends, children, and family. At times, she found even the poetic medium insufficient to effectively communicate depth of emotion on our favorite subjects. A cancer survivor, Nikki Giovanni is a professor at Virginia Tech. Her poetry continues to inspire and set standards. And here are some of her poems. I invite you to read all of these poets as you sojourn through this month. And as you're reading them, reflect on your own thoughts about love and whether or not any of what you read flies in the face, challenges those thoughts. You will be better in your love journey for it. Love is. Some people forget that love is tucking you in and kissing you goodnight, no matter how young or old you are. Some people don't remember that love is listening and laughing and asking questions, no matter what your age. Few recognize that love is commitment, responsibility, no fun at all, unless love is you and me. One of my favorites. A poem of friendship. We are not lovers because of the love we make, but the love we have. We are not friends because of the laughs we spend, but the tears we save. I don't want to be near you for the thoughts we share, but the words we never have to speak. I will never miss you because of what we do, but what we are together. A summer love poem. Clouds float by on a summer sky. I hopscotch over to you. Rainbows arch from ground to gold. I climb over to you. Thunder grumbles, lightning tumbles, and I bounce over to you. Sunbeam, sun beams back and catches me over at you. I wrote a good omelet. I wrote a good omelet and ate a hot poem after loving you. Buttoned my car and drove my coat home in the rain after loving you. I goed on red and stopped on green, floating somewhere in between, being here and being there after loving you. I rolled my bed, turned down my hair, slightly confused, but I don't care. Laid out my teeth and gargled my gown. Then I stood and laid me down to sleep after loving you. Habit, Nikki Giovanni. I haven't written a poem in so long, may have forgotten how, unless writing a poem is like riding a bike or swimming upstream or loving you. It may be a habit that once acquired is never lost. When you say I'm foolish, of course, you love me. But being loved, of course, is not the same as being loved because, or being loved despite, or being loved. If you love me, why do I feel so lonely? And why do I always wake up alone? And why am I practicing not having you to love? I never loved you that way. And you came too. I came to the crowd seeking friends. I came to the crowd seeking love. I came to the crowd for understanding. I found you. I came to the crowd to weep. I came to the crowd to laugh. You dried my tears. You shared my happiness. I went from the crowd seeking you. I went from the crowd seeking me. I went from the crowd forever. You came too. So again, in all of this Black love poetry, I'm hoping that as we share this in the Black arts movement during the month and other aspects of Black history, that as you are on your own love journey, that you will ask yourself, what has informed my Black love journey? If it's a Black love journey or love journey, is it the music? Is it the writings? Is it my belief systems and practices? Is it art? Is it the relationships that I grew up seeing? Is it all of the above? And then as you're reading these poems that are of historic and huge impact on the African and African American diaspora, do you see yourself in these poems? Do you see your ideology of love in these poems? Does it challenge you to think about how you can um, improve, enhance your love ability, your love quotient? As you journey through love, consider the works of great poets like Dr. Maya Angelou, Claude McKay, Anne Spencer, Nikki Giovanni, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and the more contemporary artists that we've read from today. All of their works are, of course, works you can find simply Googling them or purchasing books on Amazon. But I encourage you to read about them and to see in your reflective if you see the kind of love that you are attempting to have, to experience, to be. I'm Marcus Holmes, and I'm still the love activist. And I say still the love activist because I understand that love, as I understand it, has been bequeathed to me. It has been given to me as a precious gift from the quintessential love. And he's loved in a way that has been unmatched, unparalleled by any love. And he wants in return for me to love him with everything I have, mind, body, and soul, and my neighbor as myself. Today, I ask as we open Black History Month, the love that you have for self, has it been informed by the culture, your community, your experiences, and in being awakened to that if you're not already? How are you demonstrating that love, treasure trove that has been bequeathed to you in loving yourself and others that you are in relationship with? Until we understand the powerful, powerful hands of history that have delved into our hearts and filled them with the experiences of love, I submit to you, we will not be fully prepared to then love ourselves and love others. Happy Black History Month. Stay tuned throughout the month. We will not do 28 days, but we will do several days throughout the month that will cover the span of various different types of Black history, including the Black arts movement this year. And we will culminate with a wonderful Black history presentation at the end of the month. And we need you to join us in a very special pledge and commitment to raise every voice, lift every voice, and vote. As we're early in the year for many, this is yet another critical election year for many gubernatorial races and other Senate and Congress races. We want to ensure that we have people who are representing our interests. And so we want to have you join a very important pledge of lifting every voice and vote. It is our Black love movement. It is a love movement, and we want both Blacks and allies to join us in this movement as we find it a fitting time. Every time is fitting to be Black, but it's a fitting time in this month of February, as it's been set aside for Black History Month, that Black people and their allies stand up and lift every voice to vote. I'm Marcus Holmes. I hope that you will join us at Inside of Love and Stuff. If you want an opportunity to get to know a little bit more about the Love Activists and a little bit more about those that are within the Love and Stuff community, go now to the Love and Stuff community page if you're not there already. Click on Groups, click on Inside of Love and Stuff, and click on Join. There are 3 simple questions that it will ask you. And shortly after that, we will send you a brief survey just to find out your interest. We're on a self-care journey, and we are on a love journey, whether it is to improve the love of self, improve your love relationships with spouse, boo or bae, with children or parents or siblings. We could all increase the amount of love in the world. I don't know about you. I certainly need to. Come on and join us on a fantastic journey. Thank you so much. I hope as we're closing that you will remember a member of our Love and Stuff community, Aria Moody, whose father made his transition. We want her to know that we love her so much. We're praying for her. And this Black love power that we have in this community is surrounding you in prayer and power to help you through this journey. Have a grateful evening, and thank you for joining us tonight.